into it. Today's video is gonna be about Nellie and Percival from Little House on the Prairie. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is just to basically go over her character evolution, on the show. Alright, as we go through Nellie's childhood, her mom and her dad. Her mom was always kind of like very mean, very feeling like self-righteous about Nellie, and Nellie kind of got to be just as mean as her mom, to the point that she gets punched a bunch of times. She lies saying that she's like sick, and her friend just like throws her down the river. It was hilarious. I know I should not be laughing at that, because this character could die, but it is what it is. Her dad is actually the opposite of the mom. Like, he's really gentle, he's really kind. He only disciplines Nellie and her younger brother when necessary, when he hears what is going on. And honestly, she deserves it. And so does he, for just standing there and not saying anything and just be like, yo, what are you doing? So right now, here's a scene where they're practically running in because she's like, no, please don't let our dad hit us with the belt or whatever. And he's like calling her out. He's calling both of them out, Nellie for saying what she said and being rude to somebody who has a speech impediment, and calling his son out for not saying anything about it. And her mom is just trying to get her to avoid being disciplined when it's absolutely necessary for the era that they're in, because I know that this was like the 1800s. And she says that she'll go. She said that she'll go and apologize even though she doesn't want to. And, I feel like the dad is doing the right thing, in my personal opinion. This whole thing is crazy, bro. I don't know. A lot of the times we always talk about nature versus nature versus nurture. And I feel like in that certain case of Nellie versus her mom, it's very much nurture versus nature, because nature is always about your environment and how you either be the same as your environment or you change. Now, as Nellie gets older, she gets gifted, I believe, a restaurant by her mother because she wants her daughter to get married. And at one point, Nellie was going to consider marrying somebody else named Luke, I believe. And he was actually super kind, very sweet, very simple in what he wanted. And I believe because they were courting each other, despite the fact that her mother disagreed, I believe that they kissed one time and they were going to get married. And then something happened. I can't remember. I haven't seen all the episodes of this show. Anyway, so Nellie is talking to her mother. She's like, listen, I don't like to cook. And, their mom's like, I know you don't like to cook, but this is your own restaurant. And she's just like, what is going on? And her dad is just like, well, you better start liking it. Like, dang, man. Like, what do you mean? We spent all this money. We renovated everything to be just for you. And so her mom just kind of tells her, listen, I want you to understand what it means. When I first met your father, I had a small mercantile business. Of course, he was quite smitten with me when you first laid eyes on me. And I have to put pause to that because I seriously disagree with that. Maybe he was impressed or loved her, how she took control of the business in general that she was gifted. And so she tells her, she's like, listen, this is going to help you find a husband. And I like this scene because they there's something about this scene that just kind of gives them the meeting of the minds, and they're like, yes, we're gonna get this done. We're gonna try to get a husband by learning how to cook. And so she meets this guy named Percival Dalton, and he kind of is like, hey, I'll help her know how to cook. And she's like really pissed off at him because, you know, she doesn't want to know how to cook. She doesn't want a husband. And I feel like that kind of stems a lot from insecurity. Insecurity of her not, you know, just, I don't know. Anyway, I wish I could go into it a little bit more, but I won't. So Percival kind of is tired of her shit. He puts eggs on her, which I thought it was funny. And he's just like, I don't understand. Like, you don't know how to cook. You're very mean. You just, you know, I don't know. Like, he's like, yo, you're pretty, but I don't understand. You know, you don't need a restaurant to catch a husband because you're so mean. And I don't know how, but she kind of immediately, something clicks. She's like, he said I was pretty, and he understood that I needed to be, I don't know, disciplined and, or maybe spoken to in the way that she wants to be spoken to. Very truthful. Which is weird because for so many years, people have been so truthful to her about everything. So, I don't know. Anyway, so she apologizes, and then he's like, yeah, sure. And he says that actually, before she enters, he tells her parents he was going to leave. So, she asks forgiveness, and he's like, all right, go get cleaned up, whatever. And the dad is just in shock because he's never heard his daughter apologize willingly. And Nellie kind of like, you know, she says, he says goodnight to her, and then she's like, goodnight, my prince, or something like that. I thought it was like really nice. I don't know, I guess. And so these two start talking, and she tells him, like, she finds out that he's going to leave, and she says, I love you to him. And he's just like, I love you too, back to her. Because he likes the way that she's very much a strong-willed woman. And very, you know, I don't know how to describe it to you. She's very much a strong-willed woman. She's very strong-willed. Anyway, these two get married because obviously he really likes that she's a strong-willed woman. She's very much her own person. Obviously, he forgave her for being mean. And, you know, even though she originally liked to make fun of him, she realized over time that, you know, despite the fact that he's short, he's still a man at the end of the day. And, you know, she can't be talking like that. And he's very much talks to her the way that she feels comfortable being spoken to. You know, not like her mother and not like her father. Maybe perhaps a combination of both. Anyway, these two get married. They enjoy married life. I thought this was like this was a great evolution of these two being together. Her character growth as a person, you know, and at one point, you know, his parents come over, and his real name is not Percival Dalton. It's actually Isaac Cohen. And he's Jewish. His parents are Jewish, and his parents are going to come and visit from New York City. These two being together about their kids. They want their son to grow up Jewish, and her side of the parents want their grandchild to grow up in the Christian faith. So, I believe before she gives birth or so, Nellie actually goes through this problem where she has pregnancy cravings, and she's constantly eating chocolate bonbons. She's eating pickles constantly. And just to give you guys context, during that era of the 1800s, women were when they became pregnant, they were not supposed to be eating more of what they were intended to be at their weight at. Because if they did, it would cause complications for them and the baby. Like I said, it's during that time frame. So don't hold it against me. You know, he's like looking for her. He's like trying to tell her to stop eating. And she can't. And because there are certain things that he says to her that are, you know, out of pocket. Like Snoop Dogg likes to say. Anyway, she's just basically trying to hide from her husband. And she comes back when Miss Ingalls calls her back out. And she's like, why are you so hungry? She's like, I'm only feeding the baby. Which makes total sense. But given the context that I gave, yeah. So she's like, I wonder how they would be with maple syrup. So, you know, he catches her eating pickles with maple syrup. And the doctor's like, it's like, yo, he said you've been eating too much. And she's like, I want a second opinion, as she should be entitled to. And he's like, go to your room. I thought that was kind of funny, but, you know, I guess that's the way that they like to talk together. He tries her pickle craving in private, and he's so grossed out. I thought that was funny. I'll give him some grace because it turns out that she is actually carrying twins, and during that time frame, they did not know that. I'm like pretty sure 100% that if he had known that, or they had both known that they were carrying twins, he would have let her eat everything. Obviously, within reason, you know. Not every pregnancy craving is, you know, you have to indulge it. You know, it's different for every family. Anyway, so this is the video about how Nellie goes through a character of being that mean little girl that needed a punt across the river to being a sweet, kind, caring wife. And only because her talk to his fiance. And also regarding boundaries that, you know, married couples have, especially regarding their in-laws. He also took charge. He was like, listen, I told you I would not yell at your mom, but you know what? Certain times calls for it because she's going beyond our boundaries. And that's really impressive. And, you know, I think that's what I really liked about his character on the show.